and welcome to week 5 of Faith and Worship in the Digital Age as you get ready to do the readings for this week. So this week, the section is on creativity. Now, in my mind, this is the most important chapter in the textbook, and the whole concept of creativity, I think, is one of the most important traits or characteristics that the church really needs to bring to the forefront of its presence in digital media, in social media, and using of digital technologies. And I think it's really the culmination of the first 3 sections of Panzer's book, Grace in Gigabytes. Because I think when you make space for questions, for connection, and for collaboration, well, then you open the way for creativity. It really lays the groundwork. If you wanted to talk about infrastructure, infrastructure is physical things, but in terms of like almost an ideological and an attitude of infrastructure, those 3 things, I think, when they're put in place and into action, then creativity becomes a lot easier. And digital technology opens up so many possibilities for creativity. It's really, again, the technology fuels creativity, but then creativity fuels developments in digital technology and social media. The pace of change is a bit overwhelming, but I mean, just in my lifetime, I'm not that old, and even just in the past few years, the changes that we've seen in digital technology, social media, and what we're able to do, even the very definition of digital technology means that things are very easy to edit and to move and to shift around and to share. Whereas in mainstream traditional mass media, things were pretty stagnant and conversations were one way. In digital technology, a whole new way of communicating and sharing and creating is created, because things now are created through binary code, which means little snippets and things can be taken and edited and put together in different ways. So it's just like, I mean, the possibilities are endless now when it comes to digital technology and what you can do in creating a website, what you can do in making videos, what you can do in terms of broadcasting. Anybody now can create content, and that's one of the things that Panzer says in the introduction to his section, where he kind of he lifts up YouTube as an example of creativity, and I agree. But there's other ways too, other forms of digital technology that allow for creativity. So really, again, digital technology really allows for creativity. And I think there's some good theological and historical merit for why creativity should be really important for the church, an important aspect of what we do. One of the core ideas of what it means to be human is that we are created in the image of a creating God. So, when God creates human beings, as we're told in the story from the book of Genesis, God creates human beings in God's own image. And there's been lots of debate through the centuries of what that means. Does that mean, rational? Does that mean relational? Does that mean, creativity? And I think it means all those things. But in particular, I think the idea that we are made in the image of a God who creates, and given the capacity to create ourselves, that is a divine function. So to live out our creativity is to live out who God has made us to be, either as individuals or as communities. And then there's no doubt that down through the centuries, the church has often been at the forefront of creativity. Look at the great works of art of Western civilization, whether they're paintings or music or poetry, fiction, all of these things that are core to the identity of Western civilization really came through the church, were inspired by sacred writings. So we have this history of creativity. Um, Look at the importance and place of music within the liturgical life of the church. You know, the many different forms of Eucharistic prayers and poetic prayers that, you know, we use in the church all the time, all a part of creativity. But I worry sometimes that there seems to be a bit of a block when it comes to using digital technology. Um, some of that is just unfamiliarity with digital technology, and we're always afraid of what we don't know and what we don't understand. But I think there's two reasons why we're a bit hesitant to use digital technology when it comes to the church. Two main reasons. Um, One of those, I think, is a fear of change. This may shock you to hear me say that, but I think there is in the church, we'd like things to be familiar, especially in the more liturgical traditions, like, say, Anglicanism and Roman Catholicism, where we have a set liturgy, a structure, a form that we follow. We're not really comfortable in breaking out of those forms. And so when digital technology comes along, we're not really adept at handling change. As opposed to maybe you're from a more evangelical tradition, like the Pentecostal tradition or the Salvation Army tradition, which tend to very easily embrace new technologies, whether it's television, in a previous generation, or social media and digital technology today. But in the more traditional churches, we're a little bit more hesitant to adopt some of these new media. I think the other thing, the other fear that keeps us from, leaning into our creativity when it comes to digital technology is really to a fear of failure. We're afraid to try because we're afraid it's not going to be very good, and so we just assume not try that. Well, I think part of being creative is willing to take the risk to fail. Because if you don't try, and if you don't take the risk of failing, you'll never, you know, you'll never change, and you'll be stagnant and become irrelevant. So I think overcoming that fear of change and that fear of failure can go a long ways into helping us grow into and develop a sense of creativity within the church. So as you do the readings this week, be looking for ways that you can, kind of boost your own creativity, and think and reflect, like, what kind of inspires creativity in you? What kind of things are you already doing in your own life that exhibit creativity? Maybe you are a knitter, a crocheter, a painter, maybe you're someone who likes to cook. Maybe you're someone who already is writing poetry or stories. You know, what is it that gets that going? And then how can that be used in the church to create creativity? There's another important word that I just used that's related to creativity that Panzer talks about. And this is the idea of story. And again, I think the church is not very good at telling its story, sharing its story, or hearing the stories of people in the congregation. We tend still to be a very one-way conversation. And this goes back to the first section when we talked about questions. We're still very much designed about the communication going one way. So from the priest or pastor or minister out into the congregation. Our story gets held up a lot, sermon illustrations and those kinds of things. We're not really good at hearing back from the people. So how do we find ways to incorporate more of people's stories, to share more of the good things that are happening in our parish communities, and to really create a climate of creativity where we're willing to take risks, we're willing to change and try new things, and with digital technology tools, and realizing how digital technology is already changing and shaping the way we live and move and have our being within the world, and the way that the people out there who we want to invite to become a part of our parish communities, that's where they live and move and have their being as well, and it affects the way that people change and make sense of the world around them. So those are just some things for you to be aware of and reflecting on as you read this chapter on creativity. So best of luck. Take care.